The case of Terry Bollea, aka Hulk Hogan versus Gawker, is a major moment in the history of American media.
Absolute victory.
Penis is not 10 inches like
the Hulkster.
It was Bubba's wife. I'd seen her 5 or 6, 7 times. They invited me over one time for Thanksgiving. He had a race.
Back in 2016, Hulk Hogan won a lawsuit against Gawker Media that was so big, it forced the company to shut down. This company was known for its sharp and edgy content and was a big deal in New York's media industry. The lawsuit was about a sex tape that showed Hogan having sex with his best friend's wife, Heather Clem, and it was recorded without him knowing. But there was another twist to the story. Peter Thiel, the billionaire who co-founded PayPal, was secretly funding Hogan's lawsuit. You might be wondering what really happened. Well, before we get started, welcome to Tales of Titans, the place where business and history come to life. The story begins in a pretty normal way, when Thiel went to Germany for a conference talk and ended up having dinner with a student he'd met a few years back during a university tour. Despite this student's fancy Ivy League degree from Oxford, this guy hadn't really made his mark yet. But he was exactly the kind of person Peter liked to surround himself with, mostly men at the early stages of their careers who had potential. Peter would invest in them, offer advice, get them involved in startups, and assign them key roles in his ventures. This particular guy in Berlin was Aaron D'Souza. Aaron isn't just a young guy. He's really driven, but in a way that might make you feel a bit uneasy. He doesn't stand out because he's chasing fame, money, or trying to start a tech giant. He got into Machiavelli when he was 13 and is really into the idea of power. He sees Peter as a way to get that power. Now, Aaron is really driven and confident, good at dealing with people, and knows exactly what he wants. But the idea of meeting Thiel? Totally nerve-wracking. Aaron's only 26, about to have a one-on-one dinner with a guy who's worth around $1.5 billion by 2011 and is a big deal in the world's largest social network. Even if Thiel was just a regular investor, sitting down to dinner with him would get anyone's nerves up. Thiel isn't into small talk. He takes his time before responding to even simple comments, making you second-guess yourself. Small chit-chat doesn't work with him. You can't just talk about the weather or general politics. Conversations need to be deep, like discussing chess strategies or the state of higher education, and you better know your stuff because Thiel expects a serious discussion. Forget about bringing up TV, music, or pop culture. Thiel isn't interested in those, and he won't pretend to be. Alright, they're having dinner at restaurant Tim Rao right around 8 p.m. They make sure to reserve a spot beforehand and got a great table. This place is pretty famous, having welcomed big names like Obama and Merkel. Trying to appear sure of himself, Aaron looks over the menu and decides on the 8-course tasting menu. Peter signals the wine expert to come over and asks about Aaron's wine preference. When Aaron mentions he likes Riesling, Peter chooses the second most expensive Riesling available. The room quiets down, the back and forth chat wrapping up. It's crunch time for Aaron. Ever heard of the briefcase technique? It's this strategy ambitious folks swear by. Instead of just tossing around some half-baked ideas, you come prepared with a solid plan, like pulling out a detailed proposal from an imaginary briefcase during a meeting. This isn't just about impressing them with your ideas, but showing how much you've thought things through, leaving them so taken aback by your preparation and confidence, they can't help but see how valuable you could be to them. That's the moment Aaron goes for it, laying his cards on the table with, "Okay, I know what you think about Gawker. Here's my pitch." Let's pause for a second here. You guys may not know this, but in 2007, a blog called Valleywag, which is part of Gawker, posted an article saying Peter Thiel is gay. This, along with other articles about his friends and others, really upset Thiel because he felt they were harmful for no good reason. According to him, Gawker had a habit of bullying people, especially when they knew disclosing this kind of information wouldn't serve the public's interest. In previous interviews, Peter pointed out that Gawker's way of grabbing attention was damaging and unfair to the people they wrote about, making their lives difficult. So, at the dinner, it came up casually. Now, they're sitting together in a city famous for its Cold War stories, and Thiel is seeking the first real chance to act on those conversations. He's always wanted to find a way to tackle the issue with Gawker, and now the person sitting across from him is offering a plan. The idea is for Peter to set up a company that would hire former investigative reporters and lawyers. Their job would be to dig into Gawker's past articles. Since Gawker has written about so many people, they're bound to have slipped up at some point. What Aaron is suggesting isn't just a vague thought, it's a detailed strategy, complete with potential names, a timeline, and a budget of $10 million over 3 to 5 years. So Peter takes a moment before he replies. It's quiet for a bit, but then Peter starts to speak. He kind of stops mid-sentence, almost as if he's still trying to figure out what he's thinking. Then he says something he's obviously heard a bunch of times before.
That there's no solution. Nothing can be done.
Makes you wonder, has Peter started to believe that himself? Or maybe he's just testing Aaron. Now, here's the thing about being young and ambitious. Aaron, despite being pretty inexperienced, pretty much just knowing stuff from books and school, comes back with something to say you'd think sounds crazy for someone his age. But he's spot on, and he says something that someone like Thiel would really find hard to ignore. He goes, Peter, imagine if everyone thought nothing could be done. What would the world look like then? Peter was refreshed to hear something different from the usual small fixes that don't solve anything. But by 2011, Gawker wasn't a big issue anymore since Valleywag, the site that wrote about Peter, was shut down. Aaron had to find a new way to convince Peter, focusing on the idea of doing something noble rather than just defending himself or his business from attacks. He told Peter to think about the harm done to others and how it would only get worse if even someone as powerful as Peter didn't act. Thiel decided to challenge what most people take for granted, but it wasn't going to be easy or cheap. He ended up spending more than 5 years and over $10 million on this. Along the way, he got involved with the FBI, the police in Tampa Bay, and had to deal with issues related to the First and Fourth Amendments. So, what part did Hulk Hogan play in all this? In 2006, Bollea was recorded having sex with Heather Clem without realizing it. He mentioned on the Howard Stern show that he agreed to it because he was overwhelmed by his divorce and gave in to Heather's advances, thinking Clem, who he knew lived differently, and Heather cared for him. Bubba Clem admitted to making a DVD of the video and storing it. In 2012, a Gawker editor leaked a short clip from the video online. Bollea first took Gawker to court for copyright issues, trying to get a temporary stop on them. His lawyer was Charles Harder. The judge, James D. Whitmore, didn't agree with Bollea, suggesting that since Bollea had already shared so much of his life publicly, Gawker might be allowed to publish the video under fair use laws. After that, Bollea dropped his federal case and sued Gawker in a Florida state court instead. But remember that Peter Thiel was supporting Hogan from the shadows. This time, he got what he wanted from Judge Pamela Campbell in 2013, ordered an injunction. Gawker didn't agree with this and refused to take down the post and commentary, though they did remove the video, but linked to it elsewhere. The injunction didn't last long. It was put on hold when appealed, and in 2014, an appeals court found it to be an unconstitutional restriction on speech. Despite this, Gawker's attempt to have the case dismissed failed, and it went to trial. The lawsuit was a big deal because it touched on issues of privacy for Americans and freedom of the press. In 2016, Hogan won, and the jury awarded him a total of $140 million. This massive loss forced Gawker to declare bankruptcy and sell its assets. Eventually, Hogan and Gawker settled for $31 million. Well, that's all, folks. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more amazing content. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.